Yet. Our first order of business today is the minutes. The minutes were circulated earlier. Hopefully you've all had a chance to review them. Were there any corrections to the minutes? I see no corrections. Therefore, there being none, the minutes are accepted as circulated. Thank you very much, Ramon. Hopefully you're able to get your minutes okay this time over your phone
Yes.
rather than your computer.
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
Makes it a little trickier. Next item on the agenda then is an update on our financials. Brandon and Isaac, would you two please take over?
You're
Are you able to
Brandon,
share?
give me access to the share.
Yes, sir. Should have it now, Mr. Green.
Okay. All righty. Well, happy New Year to everyone, and we're wishing the Green Bay Packers better luck in 2021.
That is so unfair, Isaac.
No, I love Aaron Rodgers. I was.
We are not supposed to bring politics into work.
Oh, maybe he'll leave you all and come to the Bears. He's contemplating leaving.
I'm praying. I like Aaron Rodgers.
What a way to start a meeting.
Well, you know what they always say, wind is always next year.
Yeah.
All right, back to the subject.
Okay.
All right.
There is a city of Chicago employee on the phone. Oh,
On a more positive note, SSA 61 had an incredible year. So in the lemon that we experienced, there was some lemonade.
yeah.
So in the year was $67,000 in cash compared to $500 at the end of 2019. So total assets at 337,680. Liabilities had accounts payable 4,660. Deferred revenue of 268. And here is the great celebration. We have $0 due to the SECC. So we have satisfied that obligation. So everything is current. So thank you to Wendy, Diane, Brandon, and Raymond, and the entire finance team that has worked diligently, George, to make this possible. So everybody, you owe yourselves a pat on the back. All righty. So total liabilities at 273,157, total net assets at 64,523 compared to a negative 31,166 this time last year. So total liabilities and net assets ends at 337,680 compared to 271,241. And we all know this is primarily due to the pandemic. We were not able to expend a lot of the planned dollars for the summer activities that normally take place. So it gave the organization opportunity to regroup, restructure, and refocus. And now it's all to a fresh start here in 2021. Any questions before I move to the budget versus actual? Okay. All right. If not, so total revenues. The first time this has happened, I think, since maybe the second year or third year of the SSA. But our total actual dollars collected basically was right on target. 273,776 compared to a budget of 274,136. So that is incredible as well. And that helped out tremendously as well. Expenses, a 1.0 customer attraction, 48,000 compared to a budget of 89,000. Public way aesthetics, 64,000 compared to a budget of 90,000. Sustainability, no dollars spent, had a budget of 16,000. Economic development had a budget of 4,000, only expended 200. Safety, no dollars expended, had a budget of 7,000. SSA management, 18,000 compared to a budget of 22. Personnel, slightly a little bit over of 47,000 compared to a budget of 45. So total expenditures are 178 compared to 274 budgeted. And as you see, because we spent less, that contributed to the 67,000 in the bank, and then that 30,000 we were able to pay down to the SECC. So your total net surplus or net operating revenue, where revenues exceeded expenses, comes to $95,689.36. So the SSA can finish 2020 very strong.
That was a very difficult year for all of us. So I also want to express my appreciation to the Finance Committee that was meeting regularly. Gosh, the last 3 months of the year, it felt like we were meeting every other week almost, trying to figure out how to make the year come out right. Brandon, do you want to talk about, first, are there any other questions for Isaac concerning the financial report?
Can I make a comment
No,
first?
no, sorry, Stephanie. Guests are not allowed to speak until the end of the meeting. Sorry.
Okay.
I suggest we add a line item for the cat.
We will discuss that in our next budget revision.
Okay.
Mary?
I have a question. Since our expenditures are down, but our personnel stayed the same, are we going to have a problem because we're limited to having personnel be a certain percentage of the total
No, it's the total budget. So it's not a
budget?
impacted by-
Okay.
by the
So it
expense.
doesn't, it's not by actual, it's by budget.
Right.
Got it.
And I think we ended up being at something like just under 25%. We, the limit is 30. So
Yeah.
I believe we did okay with that.
All right, George, I'm back. Technical difficulties.
Oh, Mike McGarry.
Yeah.
Good. More questions for Isaac? Brandon, you want to do a quick overview of the budget tracker?
You can. Just so you guys are aware, I did provide, as well as with the financials for December, a copy of the December budget tracker, which shows a breakdown with the December financials, essentially our whole year of spending. Went through that with as fine a tooth comb as I could find, so it is as clean as I could make it. And give me 1 second and I'll share that with you guys. Can you see this screen?
Yes.
Great. So again, this breaks down to the same amounts that Isaac just went through a second ago, but it gives you guys more specificity in the spending categories and how that broke down for the year. So won't bore you guys with all of the detail again, but here was our total for customer attraction compared to the budgeted amount here. Our total for public way aesthetics. This number right here is that spend down number that we spoke to back to the SECC. So that came out right almost at 100% in the way of our spending for landscaping, garbage remediation, of course, sustainability, economic business development, holdover categories, same for safety programs, and again, just our management piece here at the same amount. So this breaks down where we stood for the year. And to your point, Ms. Mary, this was the amount that was spent compared to our budget. And it brings us in under that 25% allowance for the carryover amount. I'll stop sharing.
Good job, Brandon.
Thank you, Ms. Karen. And no, but shout out to the Finance Committee. Again, to Isaac's point and George's point, thank you guys so much. Yeah, that last month, like we were definitely meeting probably weekly, getting that together, making sure we came in situated properly.
Any questions then about our finances or the budget? Have we submitted our budget revisions yet? Is that still to be done upcoming shortly?
Yes, our next finance committee will be reviewing our budget, any revisions we have, as well as the carryover.
Any other questions? Finances? There being none, then we'll continue on with our agenda. Next item is an update on the PPE rebate extension. Brandon?
So this was in line with our PPP rebate reboot reopen campaign last year that we started in July as a response to support for the businesses. George and I spoke and wanted to let you all know we do plan to carry that forward. It was my recommendation for another 6 months to extend the rebate program, similar fashion allowing for businesses to apply for $1 rebate, including cleaning supplies and any supplies, masks, things of that nature. My thought is that we can extend it for another 6 months, revisit this around the summer. But as we know, the pandemic is still going forward, and businesses absolutely still need this support. So just wanted to make sure that that was something that you guys were aware of, that was in our plan to do.
Mary?
Question. Now, is this for businesses that have not already participated, or is this a second go around for those who did participate already?
Well, my thought is that we can allow for businesses who have already planned or who have already taken advantage of it to reapply. But the first right of refusal will go to businesses who have not. So if a business has not applied and didn't get a rebate last year, they would be first in the queue to receive it this go round. But this is a separate run of the program, essentially.
And how are we going to promote it?
Through, of course, social media outreach, be the main promotions, and direct email will be my thought.
Do we have the small businesses on the email list?
Yes, we do.
We do, because the ones that I spoke with last go around were not aware of the program.
Okay. Mary, maybe we can talk offline. If that's okay, I would definitely like to get those that aren't. We use a specific SEC based one. We have one that is for the footprint, 53rd, 55th Street, that it gets sent out to.
Okay.
Would it be helpful to send the list to Mary so she can eyeball it to see if her friends are missing?
Absolutely.
Circle me in on that as well, please, because since Mary and I have offices in the same building.
Okay, I'm not trying to give Mary, I'm not trying to give you more work, but I'm thinking if you can look at it,
Right.
you'll be able to like, oh my God, the whole 7th floor is missing.
Right. Thank you.
That would be helpful. I have no problem at all with that.
Thank you, Mary. More questions for Brandon? Towards the end of the year, we were looking at the most effective ways to expend our funds so that we could stay within our balance. And one of the ideas that was raised was extending the reach of our social media campaign, particularly during the holidays, to try to do more. I've been following the posts on Facebook and on Twitter and on Instagram. I hope a lot of you have also, liking and sharing and favoriting and retweeting all the right. But I asked Brandon to invite Jared today to give us an update on how it's going and what sort of responses they've been seeing. So Brandon, Jared.
Thank you. So this has been a very aggressive campaign. I want to first kind of extend a little bit of differentiation compared to what's been done during the year. The SSA has a baseline level of service, right? Throughout the year, it's based on a certain number of hours. So when December and January, this campaign started, we basically tripled the number of hours that we spend in social media. Stephanie, you okay over there?
Stephanie, can you please mute, because when you make noise, then the sound cuts out.
Yeah, Brandon, also help moderate that, Brandon.
Yeah, I got it. I got you, Stephanie. You can come back in when you got something. Thank you.
Thank you. So in terms of our goals, we set out some basic goals and parameters, George, that try to distinguish a couple things. One, we want to make sure we could drive an increase in the followers. The more of an audience we have, the easier it is for us to disseminate information. We want to make sure that we also increase the traffic to the businesses in the footprint, which is a very tricky thing to do, but I'll show you, or I'll tell you, how we did that. And then as well, we want to try to increase the engagement. In terms of the objective measurements that we looked at, our first goal was to try to increase our the followers of the SSA accounts that were being managed. That would be Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Try to increase that by 2%. We increased by 14%. The entire campaign actually generated a significant increase from Facebook and Instagram. And those numbers, we'll share this in the full report at the end of the month as planned. But there was a 5.4% increase in Instagram. There was an 8% increase in Facebook. And we're going to round up to a 1% increase in Twitter, 0.7 to be very actual. The key about that is that as we increase the followers, obviously we can increase our audience reach so that we can support the businesses. Now, this is where the interesting findings came in. We just looked at an analysis of the past 30 days, and the paid account that we utilize to analyze the platforms and analyze the hashtag SSA 61 showed that 307,000 people have been reached, or that's the impression, excuse me. The impressions were 307,000. That's a significant amount in 30 days. The reach was 14,500. Those are actual people. Reach versus impressions. So that's pretty significant. The challenge that we face is that if the businesses don't have social media accounts, then it's hard to direct traffic to them, right? That's one thing. The second thing we learned is if they didn't have accounts, they weren't creating content, so we couldn't share it. If they did have an account, but they left it dormant, possibly because the business wasn't open or because they're just refocused on other priorities, then it was almost not a moot point to send people their way, but they weren't seeing the support that they were getting. Another thing that we also noticed is that there's a hardcore group of very active social account users or social media account users, and they want more activity from the SSA, but then it looks like we're only promoting those businesses. So we have to have a balance. And that was part of our central strategy. The other 2 points I'll leave you with is, and I'll share all the details with you in the full report. We did a special content news post on hydeparkcares.com, and that featured 22 businesses. That was a news post that 21 things to do before the end of the year. And so we basically linked to all the different businesses, and that got a lot of traffic. We'll show you, it's a great campaign. That's a great way to extend the marketing approach and to get more bang for the buck, right? Because it's very hard to promote 500 businesses all the time or more, 500 or more. And the last thing is just in terms of the amount of time it takes to do this. Once we increased all the traffic, then we had to increase the monitoring because there's more comments. We got more direct messages. There's more activity. So this became a day, night, weekend experiment that required us to increase our staff attention to the accounts. So we had 3 versus 2 people. But overall, very successful. We'll share all the details in the full report at the end of the month.
So in light of the fact that you've had to increase time, does that impact the contract we have with you? Like, does it need to be revised? Do we need to do a budget revision, or is your work just the work and you get what you get?
Right. No, the campaign was budgeted for. We have to spend the time because it's a necessity. But
Okay.
after this month, obviously the the commissioners will have to determine what's the moving forward investment in social media, right? So if it returns back to the level that we were at, it's perfectly fine. That there's no change in the budget.
Okay.
This was part of our strategy for using funds before the end of the year, was escalating that. So we had the funds for it already budgeted. We just stepped up the amount that we were doing. I have to say I was really impressed by the variety of businesses that were included. I thought that was excellent, that, you know, it covered all the parts of our footprint. You know, the restaurants, but the dollar store and, you know, everything in between. And I think that's exactly what it needed to be. I vaguely remember that early in the process, there were some businesses that were sort of resistant. They didn't want to be included. Want to comment on that?
Yes. So we started off to create content, and we basically worked the footprint. We took photos. We took over 600 photos, 61 different locations. And as we went business to business, there were several that said, no, don't come in. We don't want photos taken. And I think part of it was, because like the restaurants, there was no people, there were no patrons. So they didn't want people to see that there was no one in the business, but that wasn't our approach. Our approach was not to showcase who's not there, right? It's to showcase that the business is open. And this is the way to patronize the business. But I think that there's also, you know, some internal resistance to just not knowing who, like, they don't know the SSA very well. And I think people feel like it was a scam. Like we were going door to door trying to scam them somehow.
We were going to spend money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and definitely the questions of, you know, we're like, this doesn't cost you anything, but that almost sounds like a scam, right? This doesn't cost you anything. Just let us in. No, that's what they said. No, you cannot come in.
Well, just to interject, part of our 2021 program planning, because our first year was really training Brandon on the nuts and bolts of SSA and the ordinance and the paperwork. But year 2, we're really going to be focusing on relationship building with the businesses and commissioners. So more coming to that, and my dog is barking.
Jared and Brandon, did you keep track of those businesses so we can follow up with them and educate them?
We didn't do that. No, we didn't go and say, you know what, we're telling on you. We didn't need to make a list that way. We could have, but that was not our goal. What we did try to do was, you know, the team, the goal was to say, okay, if you won't let us in, then we'll just have to take photos from the outside and still try to help you. Even though you're resistant to it, we'll still try to help you. But we did not list them out and to report back. What I will mention though is that while it's not an audit that we're suggesting that you should do, but there is a large number of businesses that are not in social media at all, or they're not using these 3 platforms. And to be honest, that is the challenge that you have with supporting the footprint, because they're not utilizing one of the advantageous tools to get to an audience. And so they don't even know if the community is supporting or perhaps giving advice on changes, because people are talking about their business whether they know it or not. There might be an educational opportunity there. That's what I'm suggesting.
I think that's a very valid point, one that we should keep in the backs of our minds going forward and see if there's some way down the line where we can help address that in some sort of communal way, community.
Yeah, that's similar to what I want to ask Jared is going forward. I know you kind of mentioned it during your whole process. What thoughts do you have going forward that what we can do to improve on the situation with the merchants?
I think it is as Diane mentioned, it is a relationship that needs to be established that gives them confidence that they're aware of what the SSA does, and how it benefits their business. And for instance, it's a soft pitch deck. This is what the SSA does. And for your business, these are the things that you might be able to take advantage of, whether that's education, whether that is the social media campaigns, whether that is consumer attraction when events come, that we're able to broker partnerships, co-promotions. Like there's a wide spectrum of opportunities. But I just don't think they know what the SSA can do.
Well, I think this is happening at the right time because we will soon have to go into the renewal of the SSA boundaries. So making sure that everybody doing this push to make sure that people are aware and comfortable with the SSA is a good thing. It'll help us not have to answer so many questions on the back end. So I think this is really great.
This is Karen Forte. Can I ask who the presenter of item number, where we at, 5 was again, the name of the person?
Jared Kelly.
I'm hearing feedback from the other. Go ahead.
That's Jared Kelly, Karen.
Are you the photographer?
I represent CEI Media Group. We have photographers.
Okay, I'm just asking because I was in the record store the day that the subject matter came up with taking the photos and getting the businesses to actually come in. So, and I met somebody, but I wasn't familiar with that person. So that's why I was asking if it was you.
Oh, no, I was outside. I was there, but I was outside.
Okay.
I don't have to take photos personally anymore. I have staff with that. Did you have any thoughts about the experience or?
No, I was just asking because I thought it was I thought it was wonderful. The owner or the manager of the record store that day I thought he was very nice to let the photographer take the pictures. I had a conversation with the photographer that day, and we exchanged business cards, and I can't find it. But I thought it was great that he was doing that. And I had also been in another business where he walked in to take pictures, but I didn't know that that's what he was doing for the SSA, so I didn't engage him prior to. I just engaged him this last time I was in the record store, and I thought it was wonderful, and I thought his reception was wonderful as well, as far as the business was concerned.
Yes. Fred Brown is his name. And
okay, he did an awesome job.
Fred, and we use Mark. And we use Mark Monahan.
Okay, he did a great job.
We can put you in touch. Just let us know. More questions for Jared? Thank you very much, Jared, for taking the time to join us this morning. We appreciate it. We look forward to seeing your report on your experience and how you think it all turned out. I was very pleased with it. So we'll discuss how we want to move forward now.
Okay.
All right. Next item on the agenda is when we were having our last financial meeting, we were discussing how useful it has been to have committees carry out certain activities. And the idea of this on programming going forward came up. So I thought I would bring that up today and see if the commissioners thought that was a good idea. This would be 2 or 3 commissioners who would be interested, in terms of programming. To me, it really means how do we want to expend our funds going, or our focus areas? What are the things that we really want to concentrate on? We have sort of identified those areas: Lake Park, the viaducts, the west end of 53rd Street at Woodlawn. But we need to find a way to focus more attention on those and get more specific about them. The alderman has asked us to provide them dollar amounts and specific plans for what we want to do. And it's very difficult to come up with those kinds of decisions in a group meeting. That if we can have a small committee that would address it and then report back to the larger commission, it seemed to me that would be an easier way to proceed going forward. So first, I wanted to find out if the other commissioners who are here this morning also feel that's a worthwhile endeavor. Anybody have a sense one way or the other? Yays, nays?
I agree. Committees usually are the ones who do the work in the large group setting. So,
Yeah.
and what were the specific committees that you were proposing, George?
Well, we already have a finance committee, which is chaired by our treasurer, and we have a reconstitution committee that is just chaired by our vice chairman, Greg Gutman, who, by the way, is excused from today's meeting. He is sitting in an airplane somewhere stuck up in the sky. But that's to prepare us for the reconstitution process that comes up in 2 more years. And so now we're talking about adding a third committee, which we were just calling programming.
Yeah, it sounds like it's a good approach.
Good. If that's the case, then what we really need then is a couple of people who will volunteer to participate in it. So who would be interested in joining this committee? Any volunteers? Once the commissioners get it set up, we can recruit, we can allow other people to participate. You know, these are open meetings. But I think the commissioners need to sort of figure out what it is that we want the committee to do first. So anybody wants to volunteer? Looking for hands.
I'd be willing to work on it.
Thanks, Mary. Any more takers for it?
And just for some perspective, and correct me if I'm wrong, George, but we're anticipating that this looks similar to the way that we meet with our finance committee. It's probably a monthly standing meeting where we're kind of going over what the expectation is for just the programming pieces that we're looking and hopefully looking for some to return this year.
Right.
And keep in mind, a lot of the work that comes out of committees is actually on the our team, you know, myself, Raymond, and Brandon. But we like to use our boards, the commissioners, as guidance. The more opinions and more input that we get from people, it's easier for us to do our jobs. Plus, the more people that know what the functions are, the more inclusive we become. So I just want to make sure people understand that we're doing a lot of the work, most of the work, but we need support.
I really want to follow up on something that Diane just said, which is, I was thinking about this last night, and it seems to me that too often I make the mistake, and I think most of us make the mistake of thinking of the commission as a board. We are not a board. We are not a board of directors. We are commissioners. And our job is to make the decisions about what the commission should be doing. The SECC's job is to carry out what we decide our missions and our goals are. And so it would be this program committee that would really take the lead in setting out what our goals and what our missions are in terms of how we want to spend our funds going forward. So, potentially, I think this would be a very important small group. It would really be the brain trust of the commission. So I will send an email out to everyone because I know there are several commissioners who couldn't join us this morning, and see who else is interested in it. And when I get the list of people who are interested, I will see if we can schedule a Zoom meeting to follow up. If enough people are interested, we will it will have to be a public meeting. It will have to be an open meeting. We can't close it to the public. But that's assuming that there's enough commissioners who want to get involved with this committee. So stay tuned, and we will be talking about this in further detail as we move forward. Thank you, Mary, for volunteering. Along the same line, the first program that has moved to the top of our list in terms of going forward is the Lake Park Landscaping Initiative. We first talked about this over 2 years ago, and we received a really nice quote from Clarence Davids about what they felt needed to be done to Lake Park to bring it out of its rather shabby state right now. I mean, if you drive down Lake Park, there's always a problem with garbage on that street and the embankments along the train tracks, but also the trees have been overgrown, lots of dead branches. The curbs are deteriorating. The grass is barely existent, and it just looks sad it just looks neglected to go down. So we came up with this idea, since it's the major thoroughfare north to south through Hyde Park, of finding ways to sort of elevate it. I asked Brandon and Diane to get an update on the quotes. Those came through this past week, the amount of money that it would take to do this. What we had discussed was roughly about $60,000, which coincidentally is the amount of money that we think we will be carrying over from last year to this year. And this was one of the designated expenses that we had earmarked for those carryover funds. I don't know how much you all remember about the original decision. Brandon, can I share my screen?
Sure, it's set up for multiple participants, so you can go.
So I went back and dug out the original proposal, and sorry, here it is. That what we're really talking about are these median areas here, and you'll notice that this is not just bare concrete at this point. This image is what Clarence David is proposing to put into the street, that it's seasonal flower displays, plant displays that they would maintain using very colorful, very hardy perennials that can withstand this sort of a position in the middle of the street where they're going to get a lot of abuse and not a whole lot of care. It's seasonal, that there would be, grasses in the fall, there'd be mums in the fall, there'd be bulbs in the spring, and there would be greenery and color in the wintertime on days like this. But the chief part would be in the summer, where there would be this bed of heavy duty color laying, and these would be put into position at, they identified 8 locations between 52nd Street and down to 55th Street, all of which is in our footprint. And it's very hard to see in their design, but you can see here that it starts from the median in front of Ulta Beauty and goes all the way down to the Hyde Park Shopping Center here at the very bottom, and the shapes of the medians and what they would do. And their proposal actually calls for, making it a bright, colorful landscape that would draw your attention. Most of the plants high, they're not low ground hugging plants. The tall plants, the begonias grow 2 feet tall. The grasses get 3 to 4 feet tall. And it would just provide a little bit more visual interest. This is all part of a project that also includes restoring the curbs, replanting the grasses in the areas where there is grass, and then tending to it during the summer, seeing that it's weeded, that it's watered, and that it's maintained all summer long, and then plants are swapped out at appropriate times. So when this was first presented to us, I think most of us were very pleased with the proposal, and that it seemed reasonable in terms of cost and expenditures. We did not have the budget at that point to do much of it. The aldermen were very helpful in jumping in and getting their street and sanitation departments to come out and trim up all the trees and take care of the bad branches, and then to clean up the garbage along the embankments, which is a never-ending project. As we're discussing this, it occurred to me that this might be, and this is just an idea, I'm not committed to this, so if you think this is not a good idea, say so. But this might be an opportunity for us to do a little publicity for the SSA, that we could host a community meeting, a Zoom meeting, to discuss the Lake Park initiative, and have anyone who's interested join us and give their feedback. That I could really picture it in addition to talking about what the proposal I just showed you. That would be the key focus point of it. But we also felt it might be very useful to include in it the intersections at 53rd Street and 55th Streets, because we know those are horrible, dangerous intersections, and to get public input about ideas people have, ways to address that, and identify better exactly what problems people have with those intersections, so that we could really have a community meeting that would focus on Lake Park, advertise it, do this sometime late in February or early March. And it also becomes a way then to advertise that the SSA exists and that we're doing stuff, and this is the kind of stuff that we're doing. So I'd really like to hear feedback on that, whether or not you think that's a good idea or if it's overkill. Mary?
I think people would appreciate the opportunity to hear about it ahead of time and to have some input. And it would also be a good way of showing that the SSA is open and communicating with the community, that we're not just some silent group that makes the decisions for them.
Sitting up there in the Polsky Center, issuing commands.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, the landscaping part of it really is sort of cut and dry. There's not a whole lot of input necessary in that, but I think people, this is Hyde Park. Everybody has an opinion and they like to express it. And let's face it, they appreciate it when they have a chance to express it, even though they complain about it afterwards. Everybody walks away grumbling and they feel good about being able to grumble about it.
Right, exactly. And also there's this negative undercurrent about downtown Hyde Park, and this might be a way to help quell some of that.
Yeah.
Mm.
What other thoughts do we have? I will tell Mr. Newsom, I'm already thinking of ways in the back of my mind to take this landscape and design and see if we can figure out a way to also reproduce down at 53rd and Woodlawn around the shopping center. You know, that big bare corner that you have right there at Woodlawn, and those big planters you have, being
Correct.
able to carry these plants across the neighborhood. And then I thought, if we do that, you know, there's also this idea that maybe we could put giant planters on either side, not in the way out, but on the sides of the viaducts, and put some color up there. And then we could probably also mark the corners of the footprint over at Hyde Park Boulevard with some planters with these plants and grasses and colors, and create a unified design that would you know, really carry through the entire footprint. That's long term. That's not immediate.
And there's Nichols Park too.
Oh yes.
That's true.
George, can I
And
make
please keep in mind that a lot of these funds are, that what the aldermen are looking at with some of the TIF dollars as well. So this isn't necessarily SSA budget. This would be also projects that we would be submitting for TIF with aldermen. So please keep that in mind.
And this is long term. Keep that in mind too. This is not all immediate. The Lake Park is the immediate part of it, but longer term, you know, we can have ideas. We can think about things. Charles, I'm sorry, you were talking.
No, I was trying to say something, but evidently I knew you was going to come forward with it. I mean, what it does, I think that kind of encircles the TIF area, that shows that it's not just intermittent in certain areas, that it covers the whole TIF area like a flower pot per se. It has boundaries, and it shows that you know, the whole community is involved, which that's what we should. The fact is long term, but the point is we're getting started. We have to get started to make any kind of progress.
Thank you. What else? What other ideas?
George, can I make one point real fast?
Nope, sorry, not yet. At the end, sorry. We'll come back to you, Aaron. Sorry. Commissioners, any other comments? Do you all think it's a good idea to go ahead with a community meeting? If so, then I'll work with Diane and Brandon. We'll figure out how to schedule it and how to publicize it, how to about it, the exact sort of focus that we want to give it. It'll be an hour. It'll be open, and it'll give people a chance to talk. And yeah, I'm with Mary that, you know, we can address downtown Hyde Park. The downtown Hyde Park schism is so funny. I find that so amusing that the old guard Hyde Park, just they don't care for it. If you're under 40, if you're under 35, it seems so natural. You know, I hear people, young people who have really grasped it. So we'll see how that all feeds out. All right, so we will, if there is no objection, then we will continue on planning for that, and we will keep everyone informed about how that will proceed going forward. So watch your emails. All right. Brandon, is there anything else on the agenda for the day before we open it to the floor for comments?
No, sir. We have covered all of our agenda items, so we're good for questions and comments.
All right, then we will briefly open the floor first to the commissioners and then to our audience, whom I have been very rudely shutting out from today's meeting because I was reminded I'm supposed to do that. So first, commissioners, questions, comments, Mary?
I wonder, is there something going on with the 53rd Street Metro Viaduct? Because the lights have been out. I keep forgetting to mention it to you, Brandon, but it's been out for like over a week on both sides.
I know for a fact, Mary, the Metro piece is maintained and would be a conversation for the Alder people that falls into. And that has been a part of the conversation as far as us looking at how the TIF dollars would be spent. But to those specific repairs, we can definitely look into that and see if there's a way that we can get those taken care of.
We do have a
Thanks.
community liaison with Metro, so we can reach out to them.
Great, thank you.
Those viaducts get extremely dark when the
Oh,
lights are
yeah.
on
Yeah.
and dirty. Good. Other comments or questions from commissioners? I should mention, because I promised I would do this, that there is going to be a community meeting hosted by the Hyde Park Community Conference on Thursday night about the transit rates that are going to affect the new test rates that, essentially cut in half the cost of riding Metro. And it's an open community forum. Anyone who wants to participate in it is welcome to. It's being hosted by the Transit Task Force of the conference. If anyone is interested and wants the information, please let me know and I'll forward you the invitation and the Zoom link. I have it on my computer and I'll be happy to send it out to anyone who would like to attend. All right, now, nothing else from the commissioners. So then we can go to our guests. Is Stephanie was still with us? Yes, Stephanie, you're still there. Okay, and then we'll get to Aaron.
Before I just wanted to introduce someone that's on the line that maybe some people have not had a chance to meet. Joanne Newsom, she is our SECC board secretary. So I have been inviting SECC board members to come when their schedules allow. And so Joanne is joining us today.
Welcome, Joanne. Thanks for joining us. Okay, Miss Franklin.
My comment was just on the spelling of Nichols Park. I believe it was in the budget documents. In the financial report.
Nicholas.
It is Nichols, not Nichols.
I saw a Nicholas somewhere. We'll correct that. Thanks.
It was in the budget documents. That's all.
Okay, got it. No Nicholas. Nichols.
Nichols.
Aaron, you had questions or comments.
Thanks. Yeah, Bruce Sagan has been writing my colleague and I to do an investigative piece about safety at Lake Park and 53rd for quite some time. Having a meeting about landscaping there would be the impetus for us to get it out in advance. Please let us know if you have the meeting scheduled, because we'll get the article out a week ahead of time. It would provide some necessary context or some useful context, I think, in advance. Does anyone have any news? Any news about businesses? Any news about anything else that's going on? I feel like it's a reasonable time to ask right now if anyone has anything. It's been a month since we've talked. I'm not sure if anyone can address the holiday season at their businesses or anything like that, but it's I figured I would ask if anyone has any tips.
No takers.
Dang.
Sorry, Aaron.
No, it's totally, I can keep it plenty happening outside of business right now.
Aaron, when you write your column on the intersection at 53rd, don't overlook the one at 55th, because there have been at least 3 people hit by cars.
Well, they're all dangerous along Lake Park. The one at 51st Hyde Park Boulevard is dangerous as well. And I mean, they're all, and I would imagine the one at 47th is too. But the one at 53rd is among the most dangerous in the city along, side the intersections of Stony Island on the south side. We'll get the data from CDOT, but I was going to ask about, whether planters would decrease visibility even more there, but it looks like, down on the ground, they wouldn't be doing it. I don't really know what the answer is. I'm not really, surely to God, with civil engineering being as developed as it is, there's some better way to do it. Journalism is not really about advocacy, it's about explaining, but it's bad, and it's been bad for decades as far as I understand it. And people die, and people get their cars banged up, and people get banged up there. So
yeah, 53rd is insane, and 55th is insane.
Oh, it's scary every time you drive it. Literally every time you drive it, it's terrifying. And Bruce Sagan doesn't say write this very often, and he's saying write this story. So, and when he
Well, I definitely think that we need to, and we've talked about this before, and safety and walkability in Hyde Park is an importance to the SSA and SECC. The intersections in the SSA footprint are important for SSA to look at, as well as with the TIF funds, and how we do proposals around that. But I know that down the line, the viaducts are going to be looked at, and there are going to be some improvements. And I know Alderman King has talked about some capital investment funds. So Aaron, you may want to follow up with Fourth Ward around some of their plans to look at viaducts. But we do know that they will be looked at, but it's important for us as the SSA and SECC to be at the table for
right.
safety and walkability, because as they do improvements that are major improvements, hundreds of thousands of dollars for these projects, that we are there helping advocate that things are important to our community. So that's just a sidebar.
Diane, has the SECC been helping at all with businesses of their second round PPP applications, or is that purely with banks at this point?
Can we take that offline?
Sure, by all means. Sorry to waste everyone's time.
Yep, send me an email, Aaron. We'll
Okay.
figure something out. Mhm.
George, can I talk to you after the meeting?
Sure, I'll stay aboard if Brandon lets me.
This is Karen
Please.
Forte, and I had a couple of questions. And I too would like to speak to Brandon and Diane and the chair, or even the whole commission only after this is over. Chair, you had mentioned about some commentary about downtown Hyde Park, and I don't know if you all know it, but I'm a Hyde Parker and I love downtown Hyde Park. I'm not gonna tell you my age, but can you share a little bit of what the issue is? Because I've not heard that before.
Oh, you must not belong to Hyde Park Classics on Facebook.
Oh, I'm not a Facebooker.
Don't go there. Don't even go there. There's a group page called Hyde Park Classics. It has something like, I don't know, 8,000, 10,000 members. And it's a very interesting of the old Hyde Park, the guys who set it up, people like Jesse Sinico, who have been here, grew up here, went to Kenwood, high school, been here forever. And then there's a lot of new people who are just moving into the neighborhood and want to learn more about the neighborhood and history and stuff. And it's actually a very interesting Facebook page because it has a lot of history, what was here, what was on that street corner 50 years ago,
Oh, okay.
Pop's book stand over at 51st Street. And the old guard, anytime anything comes up with downtown Hyde Park, they go, there is no downtown in Hyde Park. There's just Hyde Park. Downtown doesn't exist. Downtown is the loop. There's no downtown in Hyde Park. And, all the young people come in and they just go, oh yeah, we're going to downtown Hyde Park to have lunch. So, they never think about it. So it's this very interesting dichotomy.
Sounds like they just got to get over it.
Right, that's what it sounds like too. Okay, and then my other question was, and it was earlier in the social media campaign, and I think somebody may have answered it and I missed it. I was in a Hyde Park Bank building sharing your wonderful PPE program, and one of the businesses in the Hyde Park Bank building knew absolutely nothing about it, and I gave them SSA information. did you all, was that what you all were talking about when somebody said like something about the whole 7th floor not knowing? Because they happen to be on the 7th floor in that building.
So Mary's office is on the 7th floor of the bank building. My office is on the 9th floor of the bank building. And we're both always very concerned because there are so many businesses that are completely off everybody's radar in that building. I mean, it's just, there's 100 businesses in that building. And it's so hard, I do not understand why the building does not have a current directory of the businesses in that building. I have been after them for 10 years. I have volunteered to make it for them. If they will give me the information, I will print it out. I will distribute it to you, no charge, just so we know who's in that building. So we know what the business is, what it does, who owns it, and what's their contact information. Doesn't exist. So.
Okay, I'm speaking of Dr. Kaufman's office because they didn't know anything about it and they're charging back PPE to the customer base. So that was I just wanted to throw that out there because they weren't aware of it at all.
Yeah.
That's let me see. Yep, that was it until offline.
I appreciate that. We have struggled for years with how to reach out to all the businesses in the bank building. It is just there's an untapped market there that we keep trying to get into. We get nibbles here and we get nibbles there, but boy, sure would be better if there were building directory.
Yes, and it's interesting to see the parallels as we talk about downtown Hyde Park, the classic versus the new, and then we talk about service-based businesses versus storefront, brick and mortar. So we've got a lot of different parallels happening, and we've got that unique job of trying to weed through it all. So
gotcha.
Be patient. Gotcha. Please, please share information, feedback you hear, refer people to get on our email list, stuff like that. Like we'll keep trying. I think we'll never, no matter how many times we put things out there, there's going to be someone who says, I didn't know anything about it.
Right. I did send them to your office, Diane. I gave them
thank you.
Right information. So
thank you.
Is there a way that the SSA can speak with the building about putting signage about the SSA inside the building that says this is what it is and let us know that you're here so that we can, is there any way that we can provide signage inside that building to build this directory? So that people can opt in and say, oh, yes, I want help.
So the building is managed by Aegis Properties. They're the ones who call the decision. It's not managed by the bank. The bank would let us put stuff up in their lobby, I'm sure, but the building itself is Aegis Properties, and Aegis at the moment is operating long distance. They're not even in the building at the moment. They normally have offices in the building, but for the past year, the building manager, I've seen him once in the past year, so he's just not even around. There is a directory in the entryway to the building. It's at least 10 years out of date.
It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
I've tried it recently. It doesn't work anymore. Yeah.
No. My sense is that since there's so little oversight within the building at the moment, that if we would make flyers and put them under every door, nobody would, that would get the information out. And
we did that.
Management.
The first PPE flyer, Diane and I went through every floor of the building.
Hey, don't incriminate me. That may have happened. I heard that might have happened.
It might have happened.
I don't know if I was there.
Maybe it was a dream. Maybe I'm imagining.
I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
But that day we went through 90 packets. We put 90
under doors. All right. Our next meeting then will not be held until March. We do not have a scheduled meeting for February. We will hopefully try to have this community meeting instead. The next commissioners meeting is March 23rd at 11 a.m., likely still via Zoom. After this meeting, Karen has requested that any of the commissioners who are available would please stay on the line. So she would like to talk with us for a few moments. I think we're down to Charles and Mary, if y'all are available to stay. Aaron, I will not be able to meet with you right after the meeting. I'll try to contact you shortly afterwards because I need to talk with Karen. So if there is no objection, this meeting will be adjourned. Those are oh, please, Charles. Yes.
Before we go, and I don't know whether this is the platform to bring this up, but there's a mentally disturbed person that really roams 53rd Street in the area. I don't know what we can do or bring it to an attention. You know, you can call the police. They don't really do anything. He seemed to know his rights, that nobody can really bother him.
Wait, what's this?
I don't know. Something needs to be done because we don't want to wait till he really harms someone, and then it's too late to even talk about it. But I just don't know what to do anymore.
Charles, what's this about? Can you tell me?
I'm sorry.
This is the first I'm hearing of it. Can you tell me what's going on?
Oh, it's the one gentleman that's really bad. You know, he does what he wants to. He, you know, improperly relieve himself anywhere he wants to in front of anybody, along 53rd in the plaza, and nothing is done about it.
How long has he been there for?
Oh,
over
6
a year.
months
He's
or
often
more.
standing in front of the car.
Yeah.
Say that again.
He's
It's
been
6
there.
months or more. Go ahead, George. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say he's been there for over a year because he hangs out in Nichols Park when the weather is nice, and then he moves over in front of Target when the weather gets bad. And the Park District employees have complained on multiple occasions about how he's often exposing himself.
Right.
These are young women, and he obviously has mental health issues, but you know it's very difficult.
Well, yeah, but if the police are aware of it and the police aren't doing anything about it, then that's at the point that we can do something about it.
Well, what we can do is we can actually work with the homeless prevention department that came out to meet with us last year. Now, Brandon had came up with a whole plan this past year. In lieu of COVID, obviously, we were going to do this. We were going to figure out a way to start dealing with the transient population on 53rd in a positive way, because everyone that's in our community are contributing members, whether they're homeless or they reside there or they visit. So we had started to think about prevention programming. And at that time, we actually met with a few women, and there's 2 women citywide who do homeless prevention intervention, and they come out to investigate individuals. So I think that Brandon and I have to go back in our Rolodexes and try to find those emails and send out an email. Charles, if you could send me some more information on email.
Be glad to.
Individual and stuff, that way I can send it to them, because at least they try to offer them services.
And what
Target or the building View 53 is not making complaints. That's part of it too, because 311 gets those complaints.
And what we've been told that they can't help them because unless they want help, they just can't take them away and put them in a hospital or something unless they want to go. So I don't know.
But if it's obviously criminal or lewd behavior, it can be reported to the police. But we know there's a fine line of when we call police for what reasons. And I think that's something we need to be mindful of in these days and times. And so it depends on what that boundary is crossed.
Yeah, we don't want another incident like what Walgreens had, you know, that type of thing. So you never know how.
Reach out to the homeless prevention team to see if we can get them to come out and do a wellness check on him and offer him services. But part of our prevention programming was kind of coming up with some sort of resource, like a palm card, where we could hand it to people and let them know about the different resources that are out here. Because sometimes homeless people don't always want to be homeless. And so if we can provide some services in a discreet way to make, you know, not put people on blast and push them off the block, but we also do have an ongoing issue. So,
yeah, something we can do to help them, we should try to do that.
Yep. So that's something maybe we will revisit for this year, Brandon.
No, absolutely.
We have a SSA program committee. We can revisit that, because we have to look at like all the things we want to do and what that would cost, even if it's just the general getting that outreach going around it. Or
yeah.
Okay, I'll send you what information I have.
Thank you
Please
for
do.
bringing that up. That's really helpful. I'm real glad you brought that up. I've been amazed that Target has not, the Target has continued to allow the guy, he stands in their front door intimidating customers going in and going out of that store. Every night when I'm walking home at 5 o'clock, he's there. And I just, very intimidating.
It is.
It's also important, like when you have those situations and it's more than once, it's ongoing, you've seen them for a while. You can, if you're not comfortable, you can reach out to Brandon and I, and we'll try to follow up with the correct entities. Sometimes it's the property owner. You have to contact the property owner because they need to make sure that their property, they're being good neighbors and they're not having panhandling on their front door, things like that. So we can work with it. Just send, please send your concerns our way, or you can reach out to 311. That's another option too.
Okay.
All right. If there's no other business to be discussed, then commissioners, please stay on the line. This meeting will be adjourned. Thank you all for coming out this morning. So Brandon, Diane, y'all hang in there.